When Donald Trump tried to offer $7.5 million to secure a secret deal in Africa, he never expected the young revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, to turn him down a broken bar publicly. But what happened next day after Traoré's stunning rejection would shock the world. A broken bar and completely change Africa's relationship with the West. This is the story of power, resistance, and a continent rising from the ashes of exploitation. The offer. 0:45 3 o'clock. It all began quietly behind closed doors. Reports surfaced that former U.S. President Donald Trump, known for his bold deals and America First policy, had reached out to several African leaders through private channels. His goal? To expand American influence in Africa's growing mining and security sectors, particularly in gold, uranium, and rare earth minerals, the resources that fuel the 21st century economy. But one name stood out: Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old military leader of Burkina Faso, a man who had become a symbol of African pride, sovereignty, and defiance against Western neo-colonial control. Cut to visuals of Traoré at rallies, addressing soldiers, meeting with African youth. Traoré wasn't a typical African leader. He wasn't born into wealth or Western education. He was a soldier, a fighter who rose from the ranks through courage, intelligence, and love for his people. When the offer came, $7.5 million in development assistance, it sounded tempting on the surface. But Traoré immediately recognized it for what it truly was: a trap. The rejection. 3 o'clock 6 o'clock. The world was stunned when Ibrahim Traoré refused Trump's offer. While other leaders might have quietly accepted such funding, Traoré's response was blunt and unapologetic. He said, "Greater than Burkina Faso is not for sale. Africa's freedom cannot be bought with dollars." That one sentence went viral across Africa. From Dakar to Nairobi, from Accra to Kinshasa, people began to see Traoré as the voice they'd been waiting for. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #AfricaIsNotForSale and #TraoreForAfrica began trending. African youth called him the new Thomas Sankara, the legendary Burkina Faso leader who fought imperialism decades ago. Visuals: crowds cheering, African youth waving flags, Sankara and Traoré side by side. By rejecting Trump's deal, Traoré had done something few African leaders dared to do. He said no to one of the world's most powerful political figures, a broken bar, and did it with dignity. The reaction from Washington. 6 o'clock 9 o'clock. Washington didn't take it lightly. Behind the scenes, U.S. diplomats expressed disappointment. American media outlets began framing Traoré as a radical anti-Western populist. Leaked reports suggested that U.S. corporations threatened to withdraw investment from Burkina Faso's mining sector. Aid programs were reviewed. Sanctions were considered. But Traoré didn't flinch. Instead, he doubled down. He publicly announced a new vision for Africa's independence, one built on unity, resource control, and economic sovereignty. He said in a fiery speech, "Greater than for too long, we have begged for crumbs. Now, we will bake our own bread." The African Awakening. 9 o'clock 1300 hours. After the Trump incident, something incredible began happening across Africa. Leaders and citizens started rethinking their ties with the West. Countries like Mali, Niger, and Guinea expressed support for Traoré stance. Together, they began forming what media now calls the New Pan-African Alliance. Visuals: African flags waving, military leaders meeting, gold mines, young entrepreneurs. They started talking about creating an African gold-backed currency, nationalizing foreign mining operations, building trade partnerships within Africa, not just exporting raw materials to Europe and America. Traoré became the face of this awakening, and though Western media tried to dismiss him, millions of Africans saw him as the spark of a revolution that could finally end centuries of economic slavery. Trump's countermove. 1300 hours 1700 hours. Donald Trump, always known for his pride and unpredictability, didn't stay silent for long. In an interview, When asked about Traore tilde copyright as rejection, Trump replied with a smirk, "Greater than I don't know who that guy is, but if he doesn't want America's help, good luck." But behind the bravado, analysts believe Trump was frustrated. He had long viewed Africa as the next major battlefield for influence against China and Russia. And now, a young African soldier was challenging that global order. Cut to visuals, CNN headlines, Fox debates, African and Western analysts discussing Traore tilde copyright. African media, however, saw through the tension. They called it the day Africa stood up. The economic shift, 1700 hours 2100 hours. In the months that followed, Burkina Faso began to rewrite its economic destiny. Traore tilde copyright as government started working with neighboring African nations to create joint ventures especially in gold refining, agriculture, and infrastructure. Instead of sending raw gold abroad, they began refining it locally. Instead of importing expensive fuel, they began developing solar and hydropower. Foreign companies tried to pressure Traore tilde copyright, but he responded with clarity. Greater than Africa must stop being a warehouse of raw materials. We must build factories, industries, and technology for ourselves. His message resonated deeply across Africa's youth, a generation tired of dependency. They began organizing grassroots movements to support local businesses and reject imported products. The Western media war, 2100 hours 2400 hours. As Traore tilde copyright's influence grew, Western media launched what many called a character assassination campaign. Headlines accused him of authoritarianism, censorship, and human rights violations. But for every negative story, 1,000 African voices rose in his defense online. On platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube, African influencers began posting documentaries and podcasts explaining Traore tilde copyright's vision and how the old colonial system still kept Africa poor. They compared the Western narrative to the same tactics used against Muammar Gaddafi, Thomas Sankara, and Patrice Lumumba, all leaders who tried to make Africa independent and paid the ultimate price. Traore tilde copyright's supporters declared, "Greater than not this time, we will protect him. We will protect our future." The turning point, 2400 hours 27 hours 0 minutes. Then came the turning point. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger officially announced the creation of a joint military and economic alliance. The Alliance of Sahel States is completely independent from Western oversight. They withdrew from organizations like ECOWAS, which they accused of being Western-controlled. They signed new defense and trade deals not with the US or France but with fellow African nations and BRICS countries like Russia and China. For the first time in modern history, Africa was moving toward true economic liberation. And it all began with the $7.5 million offer that one man refused to take. The People's Revolution. 27 hours 0 minutes 30 hours 0 minutes. Across Africa, murals of Ibrahim Traoré tilde copyright appeared on city walls. Songs were written about him. Youth movements used his quotes as slogans of hope. In one viral clip, a young student in Ghana said, "Greater than Traoré tilde copyright rejected millions for his people." That's leadership. That's love for Africa. Meanwhile, African leaders began talking openly about building a Pan-African defense force, a continental bank, and a gold-backed digital currency to replace the CFA franc, a currency still controlled by France. It was a dream that men like Nkrumah and Sankara had once imagined. Now, under Traoré tilde copyright's generation, it was finally taking shape. The global shockwave, 30 hours 0 minutes 33 hours 0 minutes. By rejecting Trump's offer, Traoré tilde copyright unknowingly ignited a geopolitical shift. Global analysts started calling it the African Rebellion. Investors began reconsidering their strategies. Even Western youth started questioning the narrative they were told about Africa being dependent. In truth, Africa wasn't dependent, it had just been suppressed. And now, it was breaking free. African unity movements spread like wildfire from universities to online forums. People began saying proudly, "Greater than Africa doesn't need charity. Africa needs freedom." Trump's second response, 33 hours 0 minutes 35 hours 30 minutes. Months later, Trump commented again, during a rally. Greater than they say that young man turned down America's offer. Maybe he's tough. I like tough people, but I hope he knows what he's doing. Ironically, Trump's words, meant as sarcasm, ended up boosting Traore tilde copyright's popularity even more. African media headlines read, "Greater than Trump admits respect for Traore tilde copyright's courage." The story became symbolic not just of a deal rejected, but of a mindset changed. The legacy. 35 hours 30 minutes 38 hours 30 minutes. As the months passed, the Traore tilde copyright effect began spreading. New leaders across Africa started refusing unfair trade deals. Young Africans studying abroad returned home to invest in their own countries. Even in Western cities like Paris and London, African diasporas marched with signs saying, "Greater than we stand with Traore tilde copyright, Africa must rise." What began as a $7.5 million bribe attempt had transformed into a continental awakening. The message to the world, 38 hours 30 minutes 41 hours 0 minutes. In his most famous speech to date, Ibrahim Traoré tilde copyright said, "Greater than Africa is not poor. Africa has been robbed, but now, the youth are awake. And once Africa wakes up, the world will never be the same." That speech echoed through the internet, gaining millions of views in days. It wasn't just a political statement. It was a warning and a promise that the age of African submission was over. Ending, moral. 41 hours 0 minutes 43 hours 0 minutes. And so, when history looks back a broken bar the moment Ibrahim Traoré tilde copyright rejected Donald Trump's $7.5 million offer will be remembered not as a small diplomatic disagreement but as the spark that reignited Africa's struggle for true independence. Because sometimes, it takes one man to say no for an entire continent to finally say enough.